to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey, let's start by getting to know the man behind the music. Stanley Jordan was born on July 31st in 1959 in Chicago. Raised in a family that valued education and creativity, he was introduced to music at a young age. Now, this is a fun fact. He started on the piano, which you can totally hear in the way he plays guitar today. It wasn't until he was 11 years old that he picked up the guitar, and from there, he began to develop what would later become his signature style. Jordan attended Princeton University, where he studied computer music and composition. This was where he really started pushing the boundaries of what a guitar could do. In 1985, he released his debut album, Magic Touch, which topped the Billboard Jazz charts for 51 weeks. This album didn't just make waves, it redefined jazz guitar. Now, what makes Stanley Jordan stand out from other guitarists? Because I know y'all got y'all favorites. His revolutionary tapping technique.
Normally, one would play a guitar by, say, strumming. Yeah. Or by finger picking.
Instead of strumming or picking, Stanley taps the strings with both hands, like a pianist pressing the keys.
Or I can use the other hand. Or I can use the two hands independently.
This allows him to play multiple notes and chords simultaneously, creating a rich, full sound that's truly unique. Just listen. And you'll understand why people call him a musical genius. Stanley essentially plays the guitar like a piano, performing melody and harmony at the same time. You can hear jazz, classical, and even rock influences in his music, all brought together by this groundbreaking technique. Developed in the late 1970s while studying at Princeton, his two-handed tapping wasn't just a creative experiment, it was a necessity. See, Stanley wanted to translate the complexity of classical piano music and jazz onto the guitar, but the traditional way of playing didn't give him the freedom he needed. So he created this two-handed tapping technique, allowing him to perform intricate counterpoint lines and making the guitar a multi-voice instrument. Imagine playing a piano concerto on guitar, hitting every note, every chord, and every harmony perfectly. That's what Stanley was trying to do, and that's what he does. His motivation for developing this method wasn't just to push musical boundaries, it was also practical. Stanley has expressed frustration with the limitations of traditional guitar in jazz and classical settings. He wanted a way to create fuller sounds, deeper harmonic structures, and more layered music, and all on his own. So, he essentially invented a whole new way to play guitar.
So using this technique, I can play with just my left hand or with just my right hand. Or both together.
This technique opened up a world of possibilities for him. It's not just about playing fast or complex, it's about creating a sound that's richer and more complete. When you listen to him, you're hearing something that sounds like 2 or 3 musicians, but it's all just one guy and his guitar. He's like a one-man orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to this program, Stanley Jordan. Oh, Stanley!
Let me talk about some of the appearances he made in the past. One of his most famous TV performances was on The Late Show with David Letterman. This performance catapulted him into the mainstream, and it was one of the first times that a wide audience got to witness his unique style. On that show, he played with such fluidity and control that even the non-musician in the audience could tell that they were seeing something special. Letterman himself was blown away, and Stanley's performance was talked about for years after. And Stanley also made several other appearances, like on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and on Jay Leno. And for jazz fans, his 1985 performance at the Montreux Jazz Festival is still considered one of the defining moments of his career. Over the years, Stanley has played with legends like Quincy Jones, Dizzy Gillespie, and Benny Carter. His ability to cross over into different genres, jazz, classical, even rock, has made him a sought-after collaborator. He's performed with both Miles Davis and Les Paul, blending the worlds of jazz improvisation and rock virtuosity. He's also been featured on popular shows like Saturday Night Live and Good Morning America, where he stunned audiences with his ability to perform entire orchestral arrangements on just one guitar. But Stanley Jordan isn't just about technique or the show. His approach to music is deeply philosophical. He views music as a way to connect with people on an emotional and spiritual level. Stanley believes in the healing power of music, and he often speaks about how music can be used to bring people together and create harmony in the world. He's even dabbled in musical therapy, using his technique talents to help people overcome emotional and psychological barriers. Now, we got to talk about this hair thing, man, because that's the thing that freaked me out the most, because it's part of his evolution, too. When Stanley first burst on the scene back in the day, he rocked a short afro, which was pretty standard for the jazz world back in the 80s. But as he evolved as a musician, so did his style. These days, Stanley is often seen with longer, natural curls, giving him an almost ethereal, free-spirited look. And even the straight look, you know what I mean? It's a reflection of his journey as both a musician and a person. Stanley is still playing today. Currently, he is still very active in the music world. He continues to tour globally and release new music. He's also involved in education, sharing his knowledge and experience with a new generation of musicians through master classes and workshops. He's passionate about teaching others not just how to play better, but how to think differently about music. I think that's one of the most important things. Now I'm about to dive into one of his standout performances, his rendition of Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21. Now you might be thinking, how can someone even attempt a piano concerto on guitar? But Stanley not only attempts it, he completely reinterprets it. His tapping technique allows him to mimic the fluidity of a piano while also adding a jazz flair that makes the piece feel fresh and modern. In his performance, you can see that Stanley seamlessly transitions between the concerto's flowing melodic lines and complex harmonies. He brings out the drama of the piece while staying true to the classical root. Yet he adds a level of improvisation that only a jazz musician could try to pull off. It's a beautiful fusion of classical and jazz elements, and it shows you just how versatile Stanley is as a musician. You can hear how the tapping technique allows him to play both the intricate melodies and the accompanied harmonies simultaneously. It's like watching two different instruments being played at once, but it's all Stanley, all on one guitar. Man, the way he interprets Mozart's work is not just technically impressive, it's an artistic statement. Stanley Jordan is more than just a virtuoso guitarist. He's a musical innovator, a philosopher, and an artist who's constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible on the guitar. Whether he's playing jazz standards, classical compositions, or his own original music, Stanley brings something unique to his performance. Yeah, man, I remember the first time I heard him in the 80s, man, and I knew something was special about what he does and stuff like that. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend you checking out Stanley Jordan music. His performances are not just concert, they're experiences that take you on a musical journey. And if you're a guitarist, there's so much you can learn from his technique, his creativity, and his approach to music. Hey, y'all, I hope y'all appreciate that. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive into the world of Stanley Jordan. Man, I appreciate y'all for checking out the channel. Make sure you check back and see what we're doing next. I'm going to see you guys later on.